Yes, your boy is a little bit bedridden at this moment due to a spider bite. I'm healing it up, but I'm supposed to stay off of it for a while. So, yes, we're relaxing today. I started to read this without you, to be honest, because I love Good Omens, and that is our next book, Good Omens, by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. Gonna start over for y'all. I don't know. I love a good laugh. So let's see. Let's be bedridden together. Let's see. Joop, joop, joop. Is that where it starts? Okay. In the beginning. Dun, 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 dun. Just darkness. But you see the harp and the pitchfork representing the angel and demon. So, it kind of gives you that, hint of polarity. This is kind of a cryptic-ass kind of book, and I love it. It's cryptic and hilarious, right? So, it was a nice day. All the days had been nice. There had been rather more than 7 of them so far, and rain hadn't been invented yet. But the clouds massing east of Eden suggested that the first thunderstorm was on its way, and it was going to be a big one. The angel of the eastern gate put his wings over his head to shield himself from the first drops. "I'm sorry," he said politely. "What was it you were saying?" "I said that one went down like a lead balloon," said the serpent. "Oh yes," said the angel, whose name was Aziraphale. "I think it was a bit of an overreaction, to be honest," said the serpent. "I mean, first offense and everything, I can't see what's so bad about knowing the difference between good and evil anyway." It must be bad," reasoned Aziraphale, in the slightly concerned tones of one who can't see it either and is worrying about it. "Otherwise, you wouldn't have been involved." "They just said, get up there and make some trouble," said the serpent, whose name was Crawley. Although he was thinking of changing it now. Crawley, he decided, was not him. "Yes, but you're a demon. I'm not sure if it's actually possible for you to do good," said Aziraphale. "It's down to your basic, nature." Nothing personal, you understand." "You've got to admit, it's a bit of a pantomime, though," said Crawley. "I mean, pointing out the tree and saying, 'Don't touch,' in big letters, not very subtle, is it? I mean, why not put it on top of a high mountain or a long way off? Makes you wonder what he's really planning." "Best not to speculate, really," said Aziraphale. "You can't second-guess ineffability. I always say there's right and there's wrong. If you do wrong when you're told to do right, you deserve to be punished." They sat in embarrassed silence, watching the raindrops bruise the first flowers. Eventually, Crawley said, "Didn't you have a flaming sword?" Said the angel. A guilty expression passed across his face and then came back and camped there. "You did, didn't you?" said Crawley. "It flamed like anything." Well, it looked very impressive, I thought." "Yes, but, well, lost it, have you?" "Oh, no, not exactly. Lost, more, well..." Aziraphale looked wretched. "If you must know," he said, a trifle testily, "I gave it away." Crawley stared up at him. "Well, I had to," said the angel, rubbing his hands distractedly. "They looked so cold, poor things. And she's expecting already, and what with the vicious animals out there and the storm coming up, I thought, well, where's the harm? So I just said, look, if you come back, there's going to be an almighty row, but you might be needing this sword. So here it is. Don't bother to thank me. Just do everyone a big favor and don't let the sun go down on you here." He gave Crawley a worried grin. "That was the best course, wasn't it?" "I'm not sure it's actually possible for you to do evil," said Crawley sarcastically. Aziraphale didn't notice the tone. "Oh, I do hope so," he said. "I really do hope so. It's been worrying me all afternoon." "Funny thing is," said Crawley, "I keep wondering whether the apple thing wasn't the right thing to do as well. A demon can get in real trouble doing the right thing." He nudged the angel. "Funny if we both got it wrong, eh? Funny if I did the good thing and you did the bad one." "Not really," said Aziraphale. Crawley looked at the rain. "No," he said, sobering up. "I suppose not." Slate-black curtains tumbled over Eden. Thunder growled among the hills. The animals, freshly named, cowered from the storm. Far away in the dripping woods, something bright and fiery flickered among the trees. It was going to be a dark and stormy night. Here. While I get to the next part, I'm going to pause real fast. Alright, I'm back. Doop. This is all about the characters, but I don't want to give too much away, so we're going to start here. 11 years ago. Current theories on the creation of the universe state that if it was created at all and didn't just start, as it were, unofficially, it came into being between 10 and 20 million years ago. By the same token, the Earth itself is generally supposed to be about 4,500 million years old. These dates are incorrect. Medieval Jewish scholars put the date of the creation at 3760 BC. Greek Orthodox theologians put creation as far back as 5508 BC. These suggestions are also incorrect. Archbishop James Ussher, 1580 to 1656, published Annales Veterae Novae Testamenti, whatever, in 1654, which suggested that the heaven and the earth were created in 4004 BC. One of his aides took the calculation further and was able to announce triumphantly that the earth was created on Sunday, the 21st of October, 4004 BC, at exactly 9 a.m. because God liked to get work done early in the morning while he was feeling fresh. This too was incorrect by almost a quarter of an hour. The whole business with the fossilized dinosaur skeletons was a joke the paleontologists haven't seen yet. This proves two things. Firstly, that God moves in extremely mysterious, not to say circuitous ways. God does not play dice with the universe. He plays an ineffable game of his own devising, which might be compared from the perspective of any of the other players to being involved in an obscure and complex version of poker in a pitch-dark room with blank cards for infinite stakes, with a dealer who won't tell you the rules and who smiles all the time. Secondly, the Earth is a Libra. The astrological prediction for Libra in the Your Stars Today column of the Tadfield Advertiser, on this day, this history begins, read as followed. Libra, September 24th to October 23rd. You may be feeling run down and always in the same old daily round. Home and family matters are highlighted and are hanging fire. Avoid unnecessary risks. A friend is important to you. Shelve major decisions until the way ahead seems clear. You may be vulnerable to a stomach upset today, so avoid salads. Help could come from an unexpected quarter. This was perfectly correct on every account except for the bit about the salads. It wasn't a dark and stormy night. It should have been, but that's the weather for you. Every mad scientist who's had a convenient thunderstorm just on the night his great work is finished and lying on a slab. There have been dozens who have sat around aimlessly under the peaceful stars while Igor clocks up the overtime. But don't let the fog, with rain later, temperatures dropping to around 45 degrees, give anyone a false sense of security just because it's a mild night doesn't mean that dark forces aren't abroad. They're abroad all the time. They're everywhere. They always are. That's the whole point. Two of them lurked in the ruined graveyard. Sorry, my articulation is not on point tonight. I know. Um, Two shadowy figures, one hunched and squat, and the other lean and menacing. Both of them Olympic-grade lurkers. If Bruce Springsteen had ever recorded "Born to Lurk," these two would have been on the album cover. They had been lurking in the fog for an hour now, but they had been pacing themselves and could lurk for the rest of the night if necessary, with still enough sullen menace left for a final burst of lurking around dawn. Finally, after another 20 minutes, one of them says, "Bugger this, Forlock." He should have been here 2 hours ago. Or no, he should have been here hours ago. The speaker's name was Hastur. He was the Duke of Hell. Many phenomena, wars, plagues, sudden audits, have been advanced as evidence for the hidden hand of Satan in the affairs of man. But whenever students of demonology get together, the M25 London orbital motorway is generally agreed to be among the top contenders for Exhibit A. Where they go wrong, of course, is in assuming that the wretched road is evil simply because of the incredible carnage and frustration it engenders every day. In fact, very few people on the face of the planet know that the very shape of the M25 forms the sigil Odegra in the language of the Black Priesthood of ancient Mu, which means "Hail the Great Beast, Devourer of Worlds." The thousands of motorists who daily fume their way around its serpentine links have the same effect as water on a prayer wheel, grinding out an endless fog of low-grade evil to pollute the metaphysical atmosphere for scores of miles around. It was one of Crowley's... No, it's Crowley. He switched it from Crawley when he was a snake to now Crowley. Like Alistair. It was one of Crowley's better achievements. It had taken years to achieve and had involved 3 computer hacks, 2 break-ins, 1 minor bribery, and on one wet night when all else had failed, 2 hours in a squelchy field shifting the marker pegs, a few but occultly incredibly significant meters. When Crowley had watched the first 30 mile, I don't know, I keep saying 2. It's not there. The first 30-mile long tail back. Let me gather myself. Alright. He'd experienced the lovely warm feeling of a bad job well done. It had earned him a commendation. Crowley was currently doing 110 miles per hour somewhere east of Slough. Nothing about him looked particularly demonic, at least by classical standards. No horns, no wings. Admittedly, he was listening to a best of Queen's. I'm a little bit dyslexic, okay? People who watch this channel already know, but bear with me, y'all. And also, I'm a little medicated because of my ouchie. So, yeah, hold up. I'll get it together. Alright, Admittedly, he was listening to a best of Queen tape. But no conclusion should be drawn from this, because all tapes left in a car for more than about a fortnight metamorphose into the best of Queen albums. No particularly demonic thoughts were going through his head. In fact, he was currently wondering vaguely who Moe and Chandon were. Crowley had dark hair and good cheekbones, and he was wearing snakeskin shoes, or at least presumably he was wearing shoes, because, he could shapeshift into a serpent. Or at least, I already said that. And he could do really weird things with his tongue. and whenever he forgot himself, he had a tendency to hiss. He also didn't blink much. The car he was driving was a 1926 black Bentley. One owner from new, and that owner had been Crowley. He'd looked after it. The reason he was late was that he was enjoying the 20th century immensely. It was much better than the 17th, and a lot better than the 14th. One of the nice things about time, Crowley always said, was that it was steadily taking him further away from the 14th century. The most bloody, boring years on God's excuses French, Earth. The 20th century was anything but boring. In fact, a flashing blue light in his rearview mirror had been telling Crowley for the last 50 seconds that he was being followed by two men who would like to make it even more interesting for him. He glanced at his watch, which was designed for that kind of rich deep-sea diver who likes to know what time it is in 21 world capitals while he's down there. And then, little side note at the base, it says it was custom made for Crowley. Getting just one chip, custom made is incredibly expensive, but he could afford it. This watch gave the time in 20 world capitals and in a capital city in another place, where it was always one time, and that was too late. Back to the story. The Bentley thundered up the exit ramp, took the road on two wheels, took the corner on two wheels and plunged down a leafy road. The blue light followed. Crowley sighed, took one hand from the wheel, and half turning, made a complicated gesture over his shoulder. The flashing light dimmed into the distance as a police car rolled to a halt, much to the amazement of its occupants. But it would be nothing to the amazement they'd experienced when they opened the hood and found that the engine had what the engine had turned into. In the graveyard, Hastur the tall demon, I got cotton mouth. Hold up. All right, I'm back. Sorry. I feel like I get stoned every time I do these book readings. It is what it is. Anyway, this is not meant for children. just saying that as a disclaimer. Late in the game, but I've got goosebumps for them. So anyway, where was I? Doop. Okay. In the graveyard, Hastur, the tall demon, passed a dogged back to Liger, the shorter one, and the more accomplished lurker. I can see a light, he said. Here he comes now, the flash bastard. What's that he's driving? Said Liger. It's a car, a horseless carriage, explained Hastur. I expect they didn't have them last time he was here. Not for what you might call general use. They had a man at the front with a red flag, said Liger. I'm probably saying that wrong. Whatever. Who can pronounce demon names right anyway? I don't speak Latin. Anyway, they've come on a bit since then, I reckon. What's this Crowley like? Said Liger. Hastur spat. He's been up here too long, he said. Right from the start, gone native if you ask me. Drives a car with a telephone in it. Liger pondered this. Like most demons, he had a very limited grasp of technology, and so he was just about to say something like, I bet it needs a lot of wire, when the Bentley rolled to a halt at the cemetery gate. And he wears sunglasses, sneered Hastur, even when he don't need to. He raised his voice. All hail Satan, he said. All hail Satan, Liger echoed. "Hi," said Crowley, giving them a little wave. "Sorry I'm late, but you know how it is on the A40 and at Denham. And then I tried to cut up towards Chorleywood, and then now we are all here," said Haster, meaningfully. "We must recount the deeds of the day." "Yes, deeds," said Crowley, with a slightly guilty look of one who's attending church for the first time in years and has forgotten which bits you stand up for. Haster cleared his throat. "I've tempted a priest," he said. "As he walked down the street and saw the pretty girls in the sun, I put doubt into his mind. He would have been a saint, but within a decade we shall have him." "Nice one," said Crowley helpfully. I have corrupted a politician," said Leaguer. "I let him think a tiny bribe would not hurt. Within a year we shall have him." They both looked expectantly at Crowley, who gave them a big smile. "You'll like this," he said. His smile became even wider and more conspiratorial. "I tied up every portable telephone system in central London for 45 minutes at lunchtime," he said. There was silence, except for the distant swishing of cars. "Yes?" said Haster. "And then what?" "Look, it wasn't easy," said Crowley. "That's all?" said Leaguer. "Look, people, and exactly what has that done to secure souls for our master?" said Haster. Crowley pulled himself together. What could he tell them? That 20,000 people got bloody furious? That you could hear the arteries clanging shut all across the city? And that then they went back and took it out on their secretaries or traffic wardens or whatever, and they took it out on other people in all kinds of vindictive little ways, which, and here was the good bit, they thought up themselves. For the rest of the day, the pass-along effects were incalculable. Thousands and thousands of souls all got a faint patina of tarnish, and you hardly had to lift a finger. But you couldn't tell that to demons like Haster and Leaguer, 14th century minds, the lot of them, spending years picking away at one soul. Admittedly, it was craftsmanship, sorry. But you had to think differently these days. Not big, but wide. With 5 billion people in the world, you couldn't pick the buggers off one by one anymore. You had to spread your effort. But demons like Leaguer and Haster wouldn't understand. They'd never have thought up Welsh language television, for example, or VAT, or Manchester. Hold up. He'd been particularly pleased with Manchester. The powers that be seemed to be satisfied. He said, "Times are changing, so what's up?" Haster reached down behind a tombstone. "This is," he said. Crowley stared at the basket. "Oh," he said. "No." "Yes," said Haster, grinning. "Already?" "Yes. And, it's up to me to..." "Yes." Haster was enjoying this. "Why me?" said Crowley desperately. "You know me, Haster. This isn't, my scene." "Oh, it is, said Haster. "Your scene, your starring role. Take it. Times are changing." "Yeah," said Leaguer, grinning. "They're coming to an end for a start." "Why me? You're obviously highly favored," said Haster maliciously. "I imagine Leaguer here would give his right arm for a chance like this." "That's right," said Leaguer. "Someone's right arm, anyway," he thought. "There are plenty of right arms around. No sense in wasting a good one." Haster produced a clipboard from the grubby recesses of his mackintosh. Sign here, he said, leaving a terrible pause between the words. Crowley fumbled vaguely in an inside pocket and produced a pen. It was sleek and matte black. It looked as though it could exceed the speed limit. It's a nice pen, said Leaguer. It can write underwater, Crowley muttered. Whatever will they think of next, mused Leaguer. Whatever it is, they'd better think of it quickly, said Astor. No, not A.J. Crowley, your real signature, or your real name. Crowley nodded mournfully and drew a complex, wiggly sigil on the paper. It glowed redly in the gloom, just for a moment, and then faded. What am I supposed to do with it? He said. You will receive instructions, Hastur scowled. Why so worried, Crowley? The moment we have been working for all these centuries is at hand. Yeah, right, said Crowley. He did not look now like the lithe figure that had sprung so lithely from the Bentley a few minutes ago. He had a hunted expression. I think they meant haunted. But whatever. Our moment of eternal triumph awaits. Eternal, yeah, said Crowley. And you will be a tool of that glorious destiny. Tool, yeah, muttered Crowley. He picked up the basket as if it might explode, which, in a manner of speaking, it would shortly do. Okay, he said, I'll, be off then. Shall I? Get it over with? Not that I want to get it over with, he added hurriedly, aware of the things that could happen if Hastur turned in an unfavorable report. But you know me, keen. The senior demons did not speak. So, I'll be popping along, Crowley babbled. See you guys, see you. Great find, ciao. As the Bentley skidded off into the darkness, Leaguer said, What's that mean? It's Italian, said Hastur. I think it means food. Funny thing to say then, Leaguer said, stared at the retreating taillights. You trust him? He said. No, said Hastur. Right, said Leaguer. It'd be a funny old world reflected if, demons went around trusting one another. Crowley, somewhere west of Amersham, hurtled through the dark night, snatched a tape at random, and tried to wrestle it out of its brittle plastic box, while staying on the road. The glare of the headlight proclaimed it to be Vivaldi's Four Seasons. I actually really like that song. Yeah. Soothing music, that's what he needed. It's dope. It's like all like violin and shit. Or I guess it depends on the version, because some people do piano versions. Whatever. Anyway, he rammed it into the Blaupunkt. The Blaupunkt. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Why now? Why me? He muttered as the familiar strains of Queen washed over him. And suddenly Freddie Mercury was speaking to him. Because you've earned it, Crowley. Crowley blessed under his breath, using electronics instead of cursed. Okay, ha, that's hilarious. Using electronics as a means of communication had been his idea, and Blow had, for once, taken it up and, as usual, got it dead wrong. He'd hoped they could be persuaded to subscribe to Cellnet, but instead they just cut into whatever it happened to be that he was listening to at the time and twisted it. Crowley gulped. Thank you very much, Lord, he said. We have great faith in you, Crowley. Thank you, Lord. This is important, Crowley. I know. This is the big one, Crowley. Leave it to me, Lord. That is what we are doing, Crowley. And if it goes wrong, then those involved will suffer greatly, even you, Crowley, especially you. Understood, Lord. Here are your instructions, Crowley. And suddenly he knew. He hated that. They could just as easily have told him. They didn't suddenly have to drop chilling knowledge straight into his brain. He had to drive to a certain hospital. I'll be there in 5 minutes, Lord, no problem. Oh, wait, I had the wrong tone for that. He had to drive to a certain hospital. I'll be there in 5 minutes, Lord, no problem. Good. I see a little silhouette of a man's got a moose. Okay, yeah. Anyway, basically Queen's playing. We do the fandango. Crowley thumped the wheel. Everything had been going so well. He'd had it really under his thumb these few centuries. That's how it goes. You think you're on top of the world, and suddenly they spring Armageddon on you. The Great War, the last battle, heaven versus hell, 3 rounds, 1 fall, no submission, and that'd be that. No more world. That's what the end of the world meant. No more world, just endless heaven, or depending who won, endless hell. Crowley didn't know which one was worse. Well, hell was worse, of course, by definition, but Crowley remembered what heaven was like, and it had quite a few things in common with hell. You couldn't get a decent drink in either of them, for start, and the boredom you got in heaven was almost as bad as the excitement you got in hell, but there was no getting out of it. You couldn't be a demon and have free will. I will not let you go. Oh, wait. Oh, no. Whatever, it's part of the song. Let him go. I will not let you go. Alright. Well, at least it wouldn't be this year. He'd have time to do things. Unload long-term stocks for start. He wondered what would happen if he just stopped the car here on this dark and damp and empty road and took the basket and swung it around and round and let go, and something dreadful, that's what. He'd been an angel once. He hadn't meant to fall. He just hung around with the wrong people. The Bentley plunged on through the darkness, its fuel gauge pointing to 0. It had pointed to 0 for more than 60 years now. It wasn't all bad being a demon. You didn't have to buy petrol. For one thing, the only time Crowley had bought petrol was once in 1967 to get the free James Bond bullet hole in the windscreen transfers, which he rather fancied at the time. On the back seat, the thing in the basket began to cry. The air raid siren wail of the newly born, high, wordless, and old. It was quite a nice hospital, thought Mr. Young. It would have been quiet, too, if it weren't for the nuns. It's kind of getting dark in this room. I'm going to go put on a light and then continue this. Alright, I'll turn toward you because I feel like it's less awkward this way. So, okay. He quite liked nuns. Not in the way, not that he was a, left footer or anything like that. No, when it came to avoiding going to church, the church he solidly avoided going to was St. Cecil and All Angels, no nonsense of C&E. And he wouldn't have dreamt of avoiding going to any other. All the others had the wrong smell, floor polish for the low, somewhat suspicious incense for the high, Deep in the leather armchair of his soul, Mr. Young knew that God got embarrassed at that sort of thing. But he liked seeing nuns around in the same way that he liked seeing the Salvation Army. It made you feel that it was all right, and that people somewhere were keeping the world on its axis. This was his first experience of the chattering order of the St. Beryl. However, Deidre had run across them while being involved in one of her causes, possibly the one involving lots of unpleasant South Americans fighting other unpleasant South Americans, and the priests egging them on instead of getting on with proper priestly concerns, like organizing the church, cleaning rota, that means trash in Spanish, and then there was like a little note on this page. I'm going to go back to that, but I wanted to finish that sentence. I don't like when they cut it in the middle to whatever. Anyway, OCD. St. Beryl Articulatus of Krakow, reputed to have been martyred in the middle of the 5th century, according to legend. Beryl was a young woman who was betrothed against her will to a pagan, Prince Casimir. On their wedding night, she prayed to the Lord to intercede, vaguely expecting a miraculous beard to appear, and she had in fact already laid in a small ivory-handled razor suitable for ladies against this very eventuality. Instead, the Lord granted Beryl the miraculous ability to chatter continually about whatever was on her mind, however inconsequential, without pause for breath or food. According to one version of the legend, Beryl was strangled by Prince Casimir 3 weeks after the wedding. With their marriage still unconsummated, she died a virgin and a martyr, chattering till the end. Alright, now back to the story. The point was that nuns should be quiet. They were the right shape for it, like those pointy things you got in those chambers. Mr. Young was vaguely aware your hi-fi got tested in. They shouldn't be, chattering all the time. He filled his pipe with tobacco. Hold up. Where is that? He filled his pipe with tobacco. Well, they called it tobacco. It wasn't what he thought of as tobacco. It wasn't the tobacco you used to get, and wondered reflectively what would happen if you asked a nun where the gents was. Probably the Pope sent you a sharp note or something. He shifted his position awkwardly and glanced at his watch. Okay. Here's a little note. According to another version of the legend, Casimir bought himself a set of earplugs, and she died in bed with him at the age of 62. The Chattering Order of St. Beryl is now under a vow to emulate St. Beryl at all times, except on Tuesday afternoons for half an hour, when the nuns are permitted to shut up, and if they wish, to play table tennis. I kind of like that, because it's the opposite of, like, the silent thing that you'd see in, like, a monastery or whatever. Yeah. It's probably equally as spiritual, having to go through that. Anyway, one thing, though. At least the nuns had put their foot down about him being present at the birth. Deidre had been all for it. She'd been reading things again, one kid already, and suddenly she's declaring that this confinement was going to be the most joyous and sharing experience two human beings could have. That's what came of letting her order her own newspapers. Mr. Young distrusted newspapers whose inner pages had names like lifestyle or options. Well, he hadn't got anything against joyous sharing experiences. Joyous sharing experiences were fine by him. The world probably needed more joyous sharing experiences, but he had made it abundantly clear that this was one joyous sharing experience Deidre could have done by herself, and the nuns had agreed. They saw no reason for the father to be involved in the proceedings when you thought about it. Mr. Young mused. They probably saw no reason why the father should be involved anywhere. Um, he finished thumbing the so-called tobacco into the pipe and stared at the little sign on the wall of the waiting room that said that for his own comfort he would not. Wait, what? That said that for his own comfort he would not smoke. For his own comfort, he decided he'd go and stand in the porch. If there was a discreet shrubbery, for his own comfort out there, so much the better. He wandered down the empty corridors and found a doorway that led out into the rain-swept courtyard, full of righteous dustbins. He shivered and cupped his hands to light his pipe. It happened to them at a certain age, wives 25, blameless years. Then suddenly they were going off and doing these robotic exercises in pink socks with feet cut out, and they started blaming you for never having had to work for a living. It was hormones or something. A large black car skidded to a halt by the dustbins. A young man in dark glasses leapt out into the drizzle, holding what looked like a carry cot, and snaked toward the entrance. Mr. Young took his pipe out of his mouth. "You've left your lights on," he said helpfully. The man gave him the blank look of someone to whom lights are the least of his worries, and waved a hand vaguely toward the Bentley. The lights went out. "That's handy," said Mr. Young. "Infrared, is it?" He was mildly surprised to see that the man did not appear to be wet, and that the carry cot appeared to be occupied. "Has it started yet?" said the man. Mr. Young felt vaguely proud to be so instantly recognizable as a parent. "Yes," he said. "They made me go out," he added thankfully. "Already? Any idea how long we've got?" Mr. Young noted, obviously a doctor with views about co-parenting. "I think we were getting on with it," said Mr. Young. "What room is she in?" Said the man hurriedly. "We're in room 3, said Mr. Young. He patted his pockets and found the battered packet, in accord with tradition, he had brought with him. Would we care to share a joyous cigar experience?" he said, but the man had gone. Mr. Young carefully replaced the packet and looked reflectively at his pipe. Always in a rush, these doctors, working all the hours God sent. There's a trick they do with 1 pea and 3 cups, which is very hard to follow, and something like it for greater stakes than a handful of loose change is about to take place. The text will be slowed down to allow the sleight of hand, to be followed. Mrs. Deidre Young is giving birth in delivery room 3. She is having a golden-haired male baby. We will call baby A. The wife of the American cultural attaché, Mrs. Harriet Dowling, is giving birth in delivery room 4. She is having a golden-haired male baby, which we will call baby B, right? So both golden-haired babies. Sister Mary Loquacious has been a devout Satanist since birth. She went to Sabbat school as a child and won black stars for handwriting and liver when she was told to join the Chattering Order. she went obediently, having a natural talent in that direction, and in any case, knowing that she would be among friends. She would be quite bright if she was ever put in a position to find out, but long ago found that being a scatterbrain, wait, as she put it, sorry, the meds are kicking in, guys. Be patient with your boy. Everything's getting blurred. Okay. Dup. Um. Knowing that she would be among friends, she would be quite bright if she was ever put in a position to find out, but long ago found that being a scatterbrain, as she'd put it, gave you an easier journey through life. Currently, she is being handed a golden-haired male baby. We will call the adversary. Destroyer of kings, angel of the bottomless pit, great beast that is called dragon, prince of this world, father of lies, spawn of Satan, lord of darkness. Watch carefully. Round and round they go. Is that him? Said Sister Mary, staring at the baby. Only I'd expect funny eyes, red or green, or teensy-weensy little hoofkins, or a wheedle tail. She turned him around as she spoke. No horns either. The devil's child looked ominously normal. Yes, that's him, said Crowley. Fancy me holding the Antichrist, said Sister Mary, and bathing the Antichrist and counting his little dozy wosies. She was now addressing the child directly, lost in some world of her own. Crowley waved a hand in front of her wimple. Hello? Hello, Sister Mary. Sorry, sir. He's a little sweetheart, though. Does he look like his daddy? I bet he does. Does he look like his daddy Waddy? Or his daddy Waddykins? God, I hate how she talks. That's what No, said Crowley firmly. And now I should get up to the delivery rooms. If I were you, and now I should get up to the delivery rooms if I were you. Will he remember me when he grows up, do you think? Said Sister Mary wistfully, sidling slowly down the corridor. Pray that he doesn't, said Crowley, and fled. Sister Mary headed through the nighttime hospital with the adversary, destroyer of kings, angel of the bottomless pit, great beast that is called dragon, prince of this world, father of lies, spawn of Satan, and lord of darkness, safely in her arms. She found a bassinet and laid him down in it. He gurgled. She gave him a tickle. A matronly head appeared around the door. It said, Sister Mary, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be on duty in room 4? Master Crowley said, just glide along. There's a good nun. Wait. Okay. Just glide along. There's a good nun. Have you seen the husband anywhere? He's not in the waiting room. I've only seen Master Crowley, and he told me. I'm sure he did, said Sister Grace, voluble firmly. I suppose I'd better go and look for the wretched man. Come in and keep an eye on her, will you? She's a bit woozy, but the baby's fine. Sister Grace paused. Why are you winking? Is there something wrong with your eye? You know, Sister Mary hissed archly. The babies, the exchange. Of course, in good time, but we can't have the father wandering round, can we? Said Sister Grace. No telling what he might see, so just wait here and mind the baby. There's a dear. She sailed off down the polished corridor. Sister Mary, wheeling her bassinet, entered the delivery room. Mrs. Young was more than woozy. She was fast asleep, with a look of determined self-satisfaction of someone who knows that other people are going to have to do the running around for once. Baby A was asleep beside her, weighed and name tagged. Sister Mary, who had been brought up to be helpful, removed the name tag, copied it out, and attached the duplicate to the baby in her care. The baby looked similar, both being small and blotchy and looking sort of, though not really, like Winston Churchill. Now, thought Sister Mary, I could do with a nice cup of tea. Most of the members of the convent were old-fashioned Satanists. Like their parents and grandparents before them, they'd been brought up to it and weren't, when you got right down to it, particularly evil. Human beings mostly aren't. They just get carried away by new ideas, like dressing up in jackboots and shooting people, or dressing up in white sheets and lynching people, or dressing up in tie-dyed jeans and playing guitars at people. Offer people a new creed with a costume, and their hearts and minds will follow anyway. Being brought up as a Satanist tended to take the edge off of it. It was something you did on Saturday nights, and the rest of the time you simply got on with life as best you could, just like everyone else. Besides, Sister Mary was a nurse, and nurses, whatever their creed, are primarily nurses, which had a lot to do with wearing your watch upside down, keeping calm in emergencies, and dying for a cup of tea. She hoped someone would come soon. She'd done the important bit. Now she wanted her tea. I, too, am a bit parched. It may help to understand human affairs to be clear that most of the great triumphs and tragedies of human history are caused not by people being fundamentally good or fundamentally bad, but by people being fundamentally people. There was a knock at the door. She opened it. "Has it happened yet?" said Mr. Young. "I'm the father, the husband, whatever, both." Sister Mary had expected the American cultural attaché to look like Blake Carrington or J.R. Ewing or Mr. Young or J.R. Ewing. Mr. Young didn't look like any American she'd ever seen on television, except possibly for the avuncular sheriff in the better class of murder mystery. He was something of a disappointment. She didn't think much of his cardigan either. She swallowed her disappointment. "Oh, yes," she said. "Congratulations. Your lady wife's asleep, poor pet." Mr. Young looked over her shoulder. "Twins?" he said. He reached for his pipe. He stopped reaching for his pipe. He reached for it again. "Twins? No one said anything about twins." "Oh, no," said Sister Mary hurriedly. This one's yours. The other one's someone else's. Just look after him till Sister Grace gets back." "No," she reiterated, pointing to the adversary, destroyer of kings, angel of the bottomless pit, great beast that is called dragon, prince of this world, father of lies, spawn of Satan, and lord of darkness. I feel like I'm summoning it, just saying it over and over. This one's definitely yours. From the top of his head to the tips of his hoofy-woofies, which he hasn't got," she added hastily. Mr. Young peered down. "Ah, yes," he said doubtfully. "He looks like my side of the family. All, present and correct, is he?" "Oh, yes," said Sister Mary. "He's a very normal child," she added. "Very, very normal." Sorry, my hair's getting on my face. There was a pause. They stared at the sleeping baby. "You don't have much of an accent," said Sister Mary. "Have you been over here long?" And then there's a little note at the bottom. I'm going to read that real fast. "With a little old lady as a sleuth and no car chases, unless they're done very slowly." Sure, that means something. About 10 years ago, or about 10 years, said Mr. Young, mildly puzzled. The job moved, you see, I had to move with it. Must be a very exciting job, I've always thought, said Sister Mary. Mr. Young looked gratified. Not everyone appreciated the more stimulating aspects of cost accountancy. I expect it was very different where you were before, Sister Mary went on. I suppose so, said Mr. Young, who'd never really thought about it. Letton, as far as he could remember, was pretty much like Tadfield, and the same sort of hedges between your house and the railway station, the same sort of people, taller buildings for one thing, said Sister Mary desperately. Mr. Young stared at her. The only one he could think of was the Alliance Leicester offices. And I expect you go to a lot of garden parties, said the nun. Ah, he was on firmer ground here. Deidre was very keen on that sort of thing. Lots, he said, with feeling. Deidre makes jam for them, and I normally have to help with the white elephant. This was an aspect of Buckingham Palace society that had never occurred to Sister Mary, although the pachyderm fitted right in. I expect they're the tribute, she said. I read where these foreign potentates, never saw that word before, admittedly, potentates, give her all sorts of things. I'm sorry? I'm a big fan of the royal family, Oh, so am I, said Mr. Young, leaping gratefully onto this new ice flow in the bewildering stream of consciousness. Yes, where you were with the royals, the proper ones, of course, who pulled their weight in the hand-waving and bridge-opening department, not the ones who went to discos all night long and were sick all over the paparazzi. That's nice, said Sister Mary. I thought you people weren't too keen on them. What with the revoluting and throwing all those tea sets into the river. Where was I? Dang it. Oh yeah, she chattered on, encouraged by the order's instruction that members should always say what's on their minds. Okay. Sorry, I keep getting distracted, guys. Mr. Young was out of his depth and too tired now to worry about it very much. The religious life probably made people a little odd. He wished Mrs. Young would wake up. Then one of the words in Sister Mary's wittering struck a hopeful chord in his mind. Would there be any possibility of me possibly being able to have a cup of tea, perhaps? He ventured. Oh my, said Sister Mary, her hand flying to her mouth. Whatever am I thinking of? Mr. Young made no comment. I'll see to it right away, she said. Are you sure you don't want coffee, though? There's one of those vendable machines on the next floor. Tea, please, said Mr. Young. It is possibly worth mentioning at this point that Mr. Young thought that paparazzi was kind of an Italian linoleum. My word, you really have gone native, haven't you? Said Sister Mary gaily. She bustled out. Mr. Young, left alone with one sleeping wife and two sleeping babies, sagged onto a chair. Yes, it must be all that getting up early and kneeling and so on. Good people, of course, but not entirely compost mentis. He'd seen a Ken Russell film once. There had been nuns in it. There didn't seem to be any of that sort of thing going on, but no smoke without fire, and so on. He sighed. It was then that baby A awoke and down to be, er, settled down to a really good wail. Mr. Young hadn't had to quiet a screaming baby for years. He'd never been much good at it to start with. He'd always respected Sir Winston Churchill, and patting small versions of him on the bottom had always seemed ungracious. "Welcome to the world," he said wearily. "You get used to it after a while." The baby shut its mouth and glared at him as if he were a recalcitrant general. Sister Mary chose that moment to come in with the tea. Satanist or not, she'd also found a plate and arranged some iced biscuits on it. They were the sort, they were the sort you only ever get at the bottom of a certain tea time assortments. Mr. Young's was the same pink as a surgical appliance, and had a snowman picked out on it in white icing. "I don't expect you normally have these," she said. They're what you call cookies. We call them biscuits." Mr. Young had just opened his mouth to explain that, yes, so did he, and so did people even in Luton. When another nun rushed in, breathless, she looked at Sister Mary and realized, that Mr. Young had never seen the inside of a pentagram, and confined herself to pointing at baby A and winking. Sister Mary nodded and winked back. The nun wheeled the baby out. As methods of human communication go, a wink is quite versatile. You can say a lot with a wink. For example, the new nun's wink said, "Where the hell have you been? Baby B has been born. We're ready to make the switch, and here's you in the wrong room with the adversary, destroyer of kings, angel of the bottomless pit, great beast that is called dragon, prince of this world, father of lies, spawn of Satan, and lord of darkness, drinking tea. Do you realize I've nearly been shot?" And as far as she was concerned, Sister Mary's answering wink meant, "Here's the adversary, destroyer of kings, angel of the bottomless pit, great beast that is called dragon, prince of this world, father of lies, spawn of Satan, and lord of darkness, and I can't talk now because there's this outsider here." Whereas Sister Mary, on the other hand, had thought of the orderly's wink was more on the lines of, "Well done, Sister Mary. Switched over the babies all by herself. Now indicate to me the superfluous child, and I shall remove it and let you get on with your tea and His Royal Excellency, the American culture." And therefore her own wink had meant, "There you go, dearie, that's baby B. Now take him and go." No, sorry. I always say take him and go. But, now take him away and leave me to chat to His Excellency. I've always wanted to ask him why they have all those tall buildings with all the mirrors on them. The subtleties of all this were quite lost on Mr. Young, who was extremely embarrassed at all that this clandestine affection, and was thinking that Mr. Russell, he knew what he was talking about, and no mistake. Sister Mary's error might have been noticed by the other nun, had not she herself been severely rattled by the Secret Service men in Mrs. Dowling's room, who kept looking at her with growing unease. This was because they had been trained to react in a certain way to people in long flowing robes and long flowing headdresses, and were currently suffering from a conflict of signals. Humans suffering from Oh yeah, humans suffering from a conflict of signals aren't the best people to be holding guns, especially when they've just witnessed a natural childbirth, which definitely looked an un-American way of bringing new citizens into the world. Also, they'd heard that there were missiles in, like missiles, I guess, in the building, not missiles, if that makes sense. Mrs. Young stirred. "Have you picked a name for him yet?" said Sister Mary archly. Said Mr. Young. "Oh no, not really. If it was a girl, it would have been Lucinda after my mother, or Germaine. That was Deirdre's choice." "Wormwood's a nice name," said the nun, remembering her classics. "Oh, Damien. Damien's very popular." Okay. And then it's gonna go into anathema. My meds is kicking in, so I'm going to let y'all go for the evening. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to reading with y'all next time. Namaste. I love you guys.